Welcome everybody. I'm the air quotes comedian, the man with the voice so objectively horrendous that it can shatter paper napkins. And this is the Polemics podcast. Welcome. I went to the grocery store and was met at the entrance not by a greeter as you might think, though they did say, "Greetings, you weird looking English guy," and this person was wearing the store uniform and carrying a clipboard. They said, "Okay, before you can shop for any groceries, you have to sign this little agreement right here that says you won't say anything bad about Mineral Gill's Cornflakes and that you won't boycott the Mineral Gill's Cornflakes." I looked at the person wearing the store uniform while carrying their little clipboard. I looked at them with a quizzical, somewhat puzzled expression before asking, "Is there something up with Mineral Gill's Cornflakes?" "Oh no," they said, while their store uniform made placating hand gestures. "There's nothing up with Mineral Gill's Cornflakes at all." I arched an eyebrow and I asked, "What are people saying about Mineral Gill's Cornflakes?" The clipboard-toting person cocked their head and said, "Well, there has been a lot of anti-cornflake hate speech circling around, as defined by the Anti-Defamation of Cornflakes League. We have adjusted store policy at the request of Mineral Gill's Cornflakes to ensure that this kind of bigoted rhetoric doesn't occur against cornflakes." I raised my other eyebrow so that now I looked surprised. "You mean to tell me that some of your store policy has been dictated to you by an outside agency? I thought this convenient place to buy sundries and motor oil was a free grocery store." Just then, a shopper behind me piped up and said, "Do you even know what's going on with Mineral Gill's Cornflakes, mate?" I thought it a bit weird that this grocery store in the United States of America was populated exclusively with people that had English accents and sounded exactly like me. But I turned to the other shopper and said, "I have no idea what the deal is with Mineral Gill's Cornflakes. I have been trying to find out though." The other shopper said, "Well, it all started in the 1940s when Big Porridge tried to completely eliminate cornflakes, and they would have gotten away with it too if not for those pesky farmers. Traditionally, cornflakes were dispersed all over the store and didn't have any shelf space to call their own. So the allied powers of agriculture, transportation and shelf stackers got together and cleared out a section where the sugar puffs were shelved. Of course, the sugar puffs were a bit indignant about having their shelf space stolen from them, so they kicked up a right stink. A sweet, honey-infused, sugary puff stink. However, with support from the grocery store, who funneled money and weapons to Mineral Gill's Cornflakes, all attempts to take back what was stolen from the sugar puffs was met with violent repression. Furthermore, Mineral Gill's Cornflakes implemented policies whereby they further encroached into sugar puff shelf space, stealing it and violently displacing the sugar puffs, sometimes shooting sugar puff children. Now, if you say anything critical of Mineral Gill's Cornflakes' murderous theft of shelf space and ongoing brutalisation of sugar puffs, you get branded as being wholly anti-cornflake. I looked long and hard at the shopper behind me before saying, "I guess you're not going to sign this agreement then?" To which they replied, "Of course I am. I fully support the apartheid and genocide of sugar puffs. Bloody bunch of sub-serial terrorists, if you ask me, unworthy of one drop of milk." I turned to the clipboard-waving, store uniform-wearing person and said, "Well, with the greatest respect, you toad-eating fuck-nuggety cockwomble, you can roll that agreement up and ram it right up that other shopper's arse. Imagine, if you will, that by criticising the United States government you are labelled as a hater of America, which actually isn't too far from the truth. According to right-wing Christian conservatives, not only do Democrats actively hate America, but they're also antichrist, baby-eating, paedophile, Satan-worshipping atheist scum who are undeserving of life and should be executed on sight without the troubling aspect of due process. Fuck it, right? I hate Republicans and Democrats equally, and say so often and rather loudly, but that's beside the point. Imagine being labelled as some kind of American-hating cunt purely because you, I don't know, oppose the United States' complicity in propping up a puppet tin pot dictator in Uganda who regularly holds rigged elections and murders politicians who oppose him and murders voters who might vote against him, and all done with weapons provided by the good old US of A. Is it un-American to point out that successive administrations are basically terrorists on a global fucking scale? Of course, I don't hate America, do I? I actively chose to live in this country, didn't I? I might despise the government, the church, capitalism, and Ronald McDonald, but I like the actual country just fine. Now, I live in Illinois, which is a blue state through and through, except for that weird time when somehow we had a Republican governor who just vetoed every bill the Democrat-run Senate put on his desk. I swear, if they'd had a bill that proposed that that governor would be sucked off every morning by a young boy of his choosing and get paid on top of it to boot, he would have nixed it purely because it came from the opposing party. I mean, that's the state of politics in America, folks. Anyway, Illinois is a blue state, so you would think it would be a bastion of freedom, tolerance, and generally mindful of the Constitution. Second Amendment accepted, of course. According to Republicans anyway. But imagine my surprise when I discovered that there was an anti-BDS law on the books in my wonderful state. Not only that, but it was the first state to put such a law on the books. BDS are a group of people who point out the egregious crimes and atrocities committed by Israel against Palestine and Palestinians, and call for divestment of money from Israel, boycotts of companies who operate in Israel, like the Ford Motor Company, Hewlett-Packard and General Mills, and they, BDS, want sanctions imposed on Israel. Bear in mind, there are plenty of Jews who support BDS also. BDS are a peaceful organisation, but you wouldn't fucking know it if you listened to the Israeli government, who label them as terrorists. That'd be the same Israeli government that lobbies various US states to adopt anti-BDS laws that essentially criminalise criticism of the Israeli government. A foreign power leveraging law in the USA to silence dissent, laws, by the way, which are blatantly unconstitutional, as we are guaranteed the right to free speech by the First Amendment. I know the First Amendment is steadily being eroded, but fuck me, right? If I want to tell the Israeli government to fuck right off because of their war crimes, their theft of Palestinian land, and their murdering of Palestinian children while Israeli soldiers laugh and boast about it, then by fuck, I am at liberty to do just that in my own goddamn country without the fucking government telling me that by doing so I am somehow an anti-Semitic hate monger. Like Jeremy Corbyn, a man who the Gardener's Weekly magazine accused of growing anti-Semitic marrows for use in Hamas trebuchets. But yes, like Jeremy Corbyn, or as I like to refer to him, Jesus, I have no problem with Jews. But I do have a problem with a government that has turned Palestinians into fourth-class citizens in their own fucking lands, while indiscriminately murdering and imprisoning Palestinians in their own fucking lands, and, in violation of international law, stealing lands from Palestinians in their own fucking lands. I mean, I ask you, what is the end game for the Israeli government? I can only wonder what the Israeli regime will do about the Palestinian problems. What, I wonder, will be their final solution?